Well, this is our 83rd Coffee with the Commissioner live on Facebook. Appreciate everyone getting up early this morning to be on the call. This morning we have Wes Marino. He is the county administrator. We also have Travis Tompkins aboard. He is our emergency manager. I'm having a little bit of a technical issue here, but I'm going to get it solved real quick. There's that. Okay. Got it. This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Okay. We know that. All right. And we are live. We had a few little glitches this morning that little curveballs we weren't ready for, but we've got them and we're only 1 minute behind. So I'm quite happy with that. But this is our 83rd Coffee with the Commissioner. It's Wednesday morning and we've got a lot to talk about with hurricane season heating up. Last week, there was a big conference in West Palm Beach. I had the opportunity to attend it. It was the 17th Governor's Hurricane Conference. Lots of interesting information. So as we approach the season, I thought this would be just a really good topic for us to talk about, all about getting ready for hurricane preparedness. There was a lot of discussion about Hurricane Ian, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of interesting data about when all the warnings were put out, just the breakdown of who would leave and who wouldn't. A lot of people, they said about 20%, no matter what, would never leave. There's about 30% that the minute they get an evacuation order, they're going, and everything in between. So we're going to talk about all that stuff because, again, hurricane season's right around the corner, and we want everyone here in Escambia County to be fully prepared. We don't want any issues. Of course, we can't control what happens, but we can control how we respond to what happens. And so I look forward to the discussion. And again, Travis, thanks for being here, getting up early. It's a shame Eric couldn't be here this morning. Eric Gilmore, our public safety director, had another commitment at 6:30. I can't wait to talk to him about that and find out what other commitments at 6:30 in the morning. But okay, we'll figure that one out later. Anyways, so we always start these out with Wes Marino giving us an update. And I know there's always a lot going on in the county. Not really directly related to the Board of County Commissioners, but our counterparts over at the Escambia County School Board, my understanding is late last night, they terminated Superintendent Dr. Smith. So that's going to create some ripples. And it's my understanding they also finally got a deal done for Warrington Middle. So everything they do, has an impact on us and vice versa. We got to all work together. So I just want to say publicly, I wish Dr. Smith best. He came in some very, very challenging times. I think he tried his best. And it's a tough thing, but I again want to reiterate, that's why we changed the model, because if things aren't working, you've got to be able to make a change, right? Football coach ain't winning games. You got to make the change. But when you elect the superintendent of schools, you're stuck with that guy. You're stuck no matter what. And then because I lived it for 10 years, believe me, and when things weren't happening at Warrington, it didn't matter. He just tried a different thing the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year. And Warrington Middle School has been percolating for years. We've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on that school, and nothing worked. Frankly, we had parental meetings and no one showed up. Lots of issues. So we'll see what happens, but I just wanted to get that in there too. And I wish Dr. Smith the best. And of course, my counterparts on the school board, I'm rooting for them too, because as the schools go, so go the community, right? So we gotta get that on track. So anyway, Wes, so what's going on in the county this week?
Oh, lots of things going on. And one of the big topics, of course, is budget. I've been working with Stefan pretty steadily, and even this afternoon, he and I are going to sit down and go through some departmental budgets and look at operations, of course. But I think our biggest assessment will be the personnel budget, and we have. This time last year, we had 430 vacancies roughly.
Yes.
So we've cut that number by about 100. We have about 336 vacancies. About 100 of those affect the general fund and Fund 175. Those are the positions we're going to be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be looking at enhancements, things that the departments have put in that they wish for, their wish list, I guess you could say. And some of it's reasonable, some of it we'll just have to talk about, but we'll see where we land with that. But that's just how budget season is. Everybody's jockeying to get the full effect of what they can get. So we'll go through that. Memorial Day is coming up. I met yesterday with our public works folks and then the beach, and we are geared up for Memorial Day. We are fully staffed at Pensacola Beach Public Works. That has not been the case in a few years.
Right.
So we're fully staffed. We're ramped up. We're ready for Memorial Day. There's so much goes on that beach from Memorial Day on through the summer. But there's usually two concerts, or at least a concert at Casino Beach. There's an event going on at Park East. Park West has been busier than ever. I mean, this we're not even hit summer yet, really. And we had 24,000, over 24,000 cars roll through the toll booth last Saturday. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
I don't know where they go, but 24,000 cars. So this, we're bringing more folks to the beach, and there's just been a good atmosphere on the island, and a lot of good things going on. The traffic is always a discussion. We had Commissioner Bender had a town hall the other night about possibly talking about a parking garage.
Good.
In the Casino Beach. There's nothing. We don't have a set of plans, so it's just taking feedback. That's one thing I'll say about the board. They always go to the public and take their feedback.
That's right.
And then they start making decisions. And I think that's great that you guys do that. So we had a pretty successful meeting the other night on the beach Monday night. And then, I won't go to it real heavily because I think you're going to talk with Travis about it, but we had some meetings about homelessness.
Yes. Yes.
It's a tough issue. It's a hard issue. There's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different thoughts, but I think we're tracking in a good direction internally with how we're moving. But I'll let Travis speak to that. That's his passion. There's just throughout the county, just a lot of good work going on. The grass cutting season's here. Public Works is out mowing grass. You have the summer youth program coming on. We have bringing in over 100 youth into the county to work
Yes.
with various departments. That's fantastic. That's
That
great,
is.
great experience for them. And who knows, we may bring some on. There may be a future administrator in there somewhere. You never know. But it's a good experience for those folks. And we're just busy. I mean, all the departments are doing well. Good decisions being made. A lot of work going on. I can't speak enough about all the work that's going on in the departments. The directors are excited. They're flying their planes the way they should, and the departments are going well. And I don't know how other way to say it, but we're in a good spot. And I say, Jeff, we've been at this. Next month will be 2 years.
Wow.
We've been at this 2 years.
I'll tell you, hey, time flies, right, Wes?
It seemed like just yesterday. And so I think we've made a lot of progress in 2 years. We still have a ways to go. There's always an improvement that can be made, but we'll keep pushing and driving. And that's what
I'm just glad you're still here.
Yeah, me too.
It's a tough job, man. My hat's off to you, Wes. I mean, I tell people all the time, I go, it's got to be the toughest job in the county. I mean, you got 5 guys with big egos and big ideas yanking you different directions. Then you got to keep your department people happy, and you're working with different bargaining unions. I mean, and then you got the media on top of it. I mean, you got probably the toughest job in the county, and you just seem very relaxed and calm. You should write a book about it. I don't know how you do it because most people would be pulling their hair out by now.
It can be stressful at times, but you surround yourself with good people. That is, I'm not just saying that. It's not a cliche for me. You surround yourself with good people.
It's great that you said that, Wes, because I can't say that enough. I mean, every department has a superstar in this county, and it just sounds like a platitude that you're just putting out, but it's not, but it's true. We had that devastating wreck in Beulah, and before I even could, and I was getting people Facebooking the pictures of it and stuff, and it's horrible. And, it was an accident, but, people got to pay attention, but perhaps there could be an issue. So before I even could call the engineering department, Chris Phillips proactively working with his team, and they sent a recommendation to FDOT proactively. And he said, and he sent me an email saying, Commissioner, I think, there could be something. It's not our jurisdiction. It's their road, not ours, but we're going to send something just to ask them to look at it. And the state's going to look at it. They're investigating it. And I think they're going to make some changes. That's the kind of staff. We've got Liz Kissel. She put out a list the other day. I mean, it's incredible. Over $90 million worth of grants on time submitted. We're going to get a lot of those. That just doesn't happen. And I think, over the last 2 years, Wes, I think the culture has shifted in this county. I mean, it dramatically. We've got good people, like you mentioned, where, our numbers of vacancies are going down. That's a good sign. People want to come work here. It's a great place to work. So I just compliment you. Hats off to you in managing all these different things you got to do, and lots of good stuff going on. We're doing the thing I'm really happy about, after going to that Attainable Housing Summit, which I did go to as well. We're going out there, we're building houses. Tell us about that. What's the status of those houses?
We have 3 houses underway, and they should have poured the slabs this week. They had all the plumbing roughed in at the beginning of the week. They should be pouring the slabs. We got good weather. We've got 7 houses on the street now coming in behind these 3. And then we'll have, we'll put together 7 to 10 more. We've got the model, we've got the plans. It's what we said we were going to do. And I know it's been a point of focus for the board as a whole. And so that's what we're doing. We're going to build houses, and we're going to get them out to the folks that qualify for the various programs, mortgage assistance, rental assistance, those sorts of things. But we're moving the needle here in the county. We've kind of been stalled for a while. There's been a lot of talk, but I think we finally got the right plan, and we're moving forward with it. And we're going to see families coming into those houses. And
I think that's amazing, and that's fantastic. And that's something that, again, well, staff said, hey, talking to the commissioners, talking to Commissioner May, I know that's his passion, and putting a plan together and implementing it. I mean, a lot of governments never get past the planning stage, and then it just goes on the shelf and collects dust. I just want to say, Wes, I'm getting a text, I'm getting a message here, a shout out to the road department for coming out quickly and fixing the issues on the shoulder at Saratine Drive. That's another thing I want to, look, if we don't tell the story, no one else will. They'll just beat us up when something negative happens. But the roads department, another very responsive group, they'll come out typically within 24 hours and at least assess the situation.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, if it's something minor, they can fix it on the spot. That's an incredible response from government. I mean, just try and fix a problem with the IRS, and you'll know what I'm talking about. I mean, good luck on that.
And I always say that, I guess I'm a little biased. That's where I grew up at, is in the road department, but I call them the face of the county because they interact with so many citizens day in and day out. And
exactly,
when I interview folks out there, I would tell them, you might meet the sweet little old lady that comes out and gives you lemonade and cookies and tells you how thankful she is and such a great job. The next sweet little old lady will come out and she may use words you've never heard before. But that's all part of it. That's part of it. Sometimes they're frustrated, and you just got to listen to them, and they do a good job of that. Listen to the frustrations and then solving the problem.
And the other department, I always got to give a shout out because we get a lot of, obviously the law has changed. People can't make anonymous complaints anymore. So people end up calling my office about this or that or the other thing. And Tim Day and Terrence Davis and all the guys in code enforcement. I mean, they actually do a tough job. You talk about a tough job. They don't get a whole lot of pay. I think we've raised the pay a little bit, Wes, but still, I mean, it's for what they encounter and what they got to deal with. I mean, those guys are just out there on the front lines. You talk about who you might meet. Typically, it's not the sweet old lady with the lemonade and cookies, right?
Right.
It's people that are I'll use this word. They're ticked off,
yep.
And they don't want to change what they're doing. And so, yeah, I mean,
they do a fantastic job. You're right. I just worked with Tim Day and Stefan as late as last week, and we are going to raise those entry level pay to be compatible with some of our neighboring counties, and they do a fantastic job. Me and Stefan were talking. I said, our focus has shifted from, especially in public works and code enforcement. Public works is always, and they still do. We would do large projects, drainage projects, a lot of asphalt work, a lot of things like that. But the focus of the culture has kind of shifted to more clean sweep and trying to clean the county up. There's just so much litter everywhere. Yeah. And, if we're trying to be proactive and do clean sweeps, we'll invite people to bring stuff to the curb out on the street, and we'll pick it up at no cost. And then we're picking up litter every day. It's a never ending battle. So our focus has kind of changed over the last couple of years. And we're doing like 20, 25 plus clean sweeps in a year. And we used to do like 1 or 2 here, 2 or 3 here and there. But it's been a big focus because we've had to change our focus. I don't know what the issue with littering is. I don't know. I don't get it, but
I don't either. No,
litter everywhere.
Yesterday afternoon, I'm driving down 9 Mile Road, right in front of the beautiful campus of Navy Federal, $1 billion campus, right? They put 1.2, and someone just dumped their garbage right in the road. I mean, full on bags, hefty sacks, right in the middle of the road. And then people run it over, and it's all over, and it's on the shoulders. And I just don't get it. I don't get it, Wes. I don't, people have no pride. They just throw stuff out the window, dump trash out on the roadways. I mean, it's a state road. And so Ferrovio is going to get the call on that. But, that's the other thing. I mean, you guys got the guys out picking up. In fact, in looking at the reports that were submitted for backup for our meeting tomorrow, one of the reports was from Keep Pensacola Beautiful, and just the amount of garbage that they've picked up. We've had to increase their contract, and they've picked up just loads of garbage, in addition to your road corrections officers and their teams going out. So I don't understand it either. I've been doing a lot of traveling recently with this with a new job that I took. I just don't see the level of dirty streets and dirty roads in other places. I was in West Palm Beach. It was immaculate. Now, it's a wealthy, parts of it are wealthy, parts of it weren't though. I mean, there's, but I didn't see the garbage all over the roads. I just didn't see it. But Escambia County, Pensacola, I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know what we could do. I guess we just have to keep picking it up and hope people stop dumping garbage all over the place and have some pride in their community. But hey, I got a question coming in, and it's about Bower Road. Okay, here's the question. Since we're talking roads, what can be done to get the state to pave Bower Road? Well, it's not a state road, unfortunately. That's our road, right, Wes?
It's county road, yeah.
Dang it. Yeah. Well, Amanda Johnson's asking. So, Amanda, unfortunately, that's a county road. So
yeah, we had a thought one time and even a conceptual plan to add shoulders to Bower Road and then repave it. And I'll get with engineering, see where we're at with that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be expensive. But now here's the thing, right? There's a brand new group and we are Perdido. They want to incorporate. And the first two things I want to give them, if they're successful, are Bower Road and Perdido Key Drive. Go get them, Tiger. Well, see, here's the thing. They're not going to take the roads, right? My understanding, they're going to do government light. They're not going to take the roads. They're not going to have a police force. They're not going to have their own codes, their own ordinances. They're going to use ours. They're not going to have their own code enforcement, use ours. They're not going to have schools. They're going to use the Escambia County School District. They're not going to have their own fire service. So use the fire service. So if they don't want to take the roads, I just don't know. I guess I'd like to know what problem they're looking to solve. They had a big meeting last night. I'll have to watch it on YouTube. I was unable to make it, but so that would be my answer. Maybe this new city could take it, but I doubt that because they already said they don't want to take the roads. So that means, Wes, we got to put something together on that. That is an important artery from 98 back down to, and it is in bad shape and it's dangerous. I mean, it's narrow. I'd love to have shoulders, rumble strips, but it's not Sorrento Road. I mean, Sorrento Road's much worse. A lot more wrecks on Sorrento. That is a state road, and the state, to their credit, is now out there doing a lot of different numerous repairs, including a stoplight at Doug Ford Drive, which is fantastic. But yeah, whatever we could do on Bower, I would like to look at that, and maybe if we fix it enough, the new city could take it if they're successful. Which is going to be a hurdle they're going to have to jump. But anyway. Many of us who do our own clean sweeps in our front yards, et cetera, not sure why people throw out their garbage in the streets. Yeah, Daryl is asking that question. I don't know why either. It's disgusting. I just don't get it. And it's not like that other places. Other places, and I hate to bring up California, but I've spent many years there going to college. They have $1,000 fines, and they'll cite you and they will fine you. And guess what? They have a lot of problems, but litter in nice communities. Like I consider Escambia County a good community. Litter is not one of them because they will enforce the law. Now, the state, I've asked at our meetings, and I'll address this to Daryl. I've asked at our meetings, and our county attorney has told us that the state has preempted our ability to impose hefty fines. The state has preempted us. Now, we could put signs up, don't litter. I know that my counterpart in District 2 is doing that. I'll do it too. I'll try everything. But in terms of $1,000 fine, we're not allowed to do it. That's what I was told by the attorney. So that's a good question. Anyways, final thing, and then we're going to get to you, Travis. Man, we're supposed to talk about hurricanes. We're talking about everything else, but that's good. These are good conversations. OLF 8, what's the latest and greatest?
So we will have a draft of a counter offer, I guess you would say, some verbiage with a counter offer going back to D.R. Horton. We'll distribute that draft this probably today. If you don't already have it, you will have it by the end of the day, probably by midday. That's response to their initial draft that came across to us. So we've gone through it, we've come through it, we've redlined, we've added some verbiage that we think is a little more favorable to our position, if you will. In addition to that, there's some discussions going on with Blue Stem Partners for maybe a 100-acre concept of light industrial up toward the northern end of the property. And there's also, of course, some discussion with Sterling, who is still partnered up with Horton, but their board gave direction that we would hold some acreage back, 250 acres. So with that direction, we started having conversations independently with folks who have expressed interest in that light industrial portion of the property. So those discussions are going on. I think they're robust discussions. I think they're may hold some promise and maybe some goodwill moving forward. There's also the idea of Triumph dollars coming in, and maybe doing another Triumph application. So we're discussing that. That might be something we move forward with as well. there's just a lot of action, a lot of moving parts going on with OLF 8. But the good thing is we have a lot of interest, and there is a lot of robust discussion going on. And I think through some of that discussion, we'll see some good results.
Hey, no, that's a great answer. And I know, and I appreciate you and Allison and the rest of the team, taking that on and working that back and forth. And on that topic, we are going to have, a county is going to have a June 5th town hall in Beulah. And we're going to get the residents out there. We're going to talk about OLF 8. We're going to talk about the coming master plan that Sigma is working on. We're going to talk about any community issues that you want. I'm also going to, I'm going to invite D.R. Horton and Sterling Properties to be a part of it. Now, whether or not they will, that'll be up to them. I would encourage them to do so. When I've done this before, we did it for the apartment complex on Canal, and all the residents came out and spoke, and it was very productive. We did it when with the other development group that's building the Publix off of Highway 98 south of South Bay, and a lot of folks were very upset. We sat down, we had the developer, we had a long meeting, and a lot of questions got answered, and it really resolves a lot of issues. So I'm going to invite D.R. Horton. It's going to be June 5th at 6 o'clock. It's either going to be at Beulah Middle School. We're going to make that arrangement, or it will be at Navy Federal's auditorium. I believe Navy Federal is willing to host it, but they prefer to do it only if D.R. Horton and Sterling can participate. So I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to have it. It'll be at one of those locations, and D.R. Horton and Sterling will be invited. But the public needs to be able to have the opportunity to weigh in and hear the facts about how this all happened, what's in the master plan, what's feasible, and what the board's direction is. Because this isn't Jeff Bergosh's deal. This is a board initiative, and I can't go out and on my own and be a free agent and do it the way I want to. Believe me, if I could, it would be totally different than what's going on right now. So June 5th is going to happen, and I look forward to that, Wes. So for planning purposes, can we just make sure staff will be available that evening?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. All right. Anything else before we move on to hurricane preparations?
No, I'm interested for Travis to tell us everything emergency management, and can't wait for him to speak to homelessness.
Hey, and before we get, thank you for that. And then before we get to that, I got another question. Could you ask Travis about Pulse Point, the contract being ended? It had a feature where a user could locate the nearest AED. With it going away, that service is gone. Can you speak to that, or is that more in Wes or in Eric's wheelhouse?
I can speak to the fact I do know that the contract we do not have a contract with Pulse Point anymore. As far as AED locations, that really would be more of Eric's wheelhouse. But we'll definitely address that.
Yeah, if you could you follow up and just shoot me an email later, because I know that that's important, and we've got to have that functionality so people know where those things are, because those things do save lives. Brown Barge Middle School, in 2009 or 10, my daughter was going there, and the running coach, who was also a teacher there, actually had an episode, and the school district had installed the AEDs. And so one of the assistant principals, I believe, or a teacher, the students went in, "Hey, Mr. York," and they got the aid and they saved his life. These things work, as you know, and so people got to know where they are and how to use them. So, all right, very good. All right, well, this past week, the Governor's Hurricane Conference, the 17th Governor's Hurricane Conference, happened in West Palm Beach. It was very well attended, thousands of people. I had the opportunity to go, not representing the county per se, but in another capacity, but lots of germane topics, germane to my duties as a county commissioner. So the first thing I want to talk about, which was most fascinating to me and interesting, was Kevin Guthrie is the director of emergency management for the state of Florida. High energy, high intensity guy. His presentations were fantastic. But the big push in the state right now is the Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation, FROC. I took a 3.5-hour training course in it. Very interesting stuff. I guess they're in the beta testing phase of it, but they're going to implement it. And Travis, our first question, is Escambia County participating in that?
Yes, we are. We're part of the pilot program.
Okay, explain to the folks what FROC is and why it is important.
So the Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation System, or FROC, is basically, it's a standardized system that FDEM has come up with to try to streamline the reimbursement process for counties and municipalities for disasters. And so I always look at things from the standpoint of how this would benefit Escambia County. And so what we wanted to do was participate in the program to kind of peek under the hood, so to speak, to see what it is that the state was trying to do. They're standardizing their form submissions,
Yes.
and they've worked really hard at that. They have come up with a grading system for all the participants to then look at how that we can hopefully get reimbursement quicker when we submit our paperwork. But a big push that they are pushing is that the advancement. And so Escambia County has never asked for an advancement during after a storm. We've been able to, thankfully, we've been able to cover those expenses, and then we're reimbursed by the state and FEMA. But speaking with Stephen Hall at a meeting that we had this past week, he's not opposed to potentially looking at some of that advancement money. In the past, before FROC, the most that any entity could request was, I believe, 20 or 25% of an advancement. And with this FROC process, depending upon your rating and depending on your risk, it could go all the way up to 80%. And so we're sitting pretty good. We're actually in really good shape, that where we could potentially seek a good bit more than the minimum for reimbursement. It's also helped us look at our plans and procedures for other departments as far as purchasing and budgeting and just our roads department, our facilities department, everybody. It's been able to get them to kind of look at their procedures and do some updates, and so we've had some really great discussions with that. And so with being part of the pilot program, again, Escambia County is really way ahead of the ball on this.
Yeah, and according to Mr. Guthrie and his assistant, who was there also very sharp, this summer they're gonna put it out there, but it actually goes live a year from now in 2024. But he this was an amazing stat that he threw out to me, to the group. In his I guess he's been there about 5.5 years. He said they have achieved $8 billion in reimbursements to the municipalities and counties, post storm. And he said that number was larger than the previous 20 years combined, which I thought was an incredible statistic. He also went on to say that he believes this FROC will become a national best practice. Is that your thought as well? Will it be?
Well, it definitely that's definitely his goal is to make this a national progress. And I think that FEMA will be able to go back and look at that and see that it's a really streamlined process. FEMA, we have the National Incident Management System that we all participate in, and so being able to be able to streamline anything and to cut back on waste, and that's something that I think that FROC is that they're looking for too, is that we don't get a duplication of expenditures for things. I think strongly that he could definitely get this done.
Well, to me, it's interesting that he's going to have I guess, for lack of a better word, an app and a tablet-based and a computer-based electronic form, and the standardization. One of the examples that he gave, and you've probably heard this, but maybe folks watching haven't, but post Hurricane Michael, it hit not a very densely packed part of the state, but the damage done that required the vegetative debris from that storm, because it's all forests over there, right? All the forests. It was the largest I think he said in the history of the country, and it just required tremendous amounts of effort to remove all that debris. The trees if you drove to Tallahassee after the storm, you just saw on either side of the road in certain areas, you saw the trees knocked over. But he said the documents, the daily load count slips, he says they weren't measured in the numbers of boxes full. They were measured in the number of pallets. There was so much. He said some were copies of copies that were handwritten. And he said it was just a disaster. It was a nightmare trying to go through them all for accuracy, number one, and so that the counties could be reimbursed. So one of the things that he said that was very interesting was they're going to streamline all of that. And instead of pallets, even a big storm like that, it isn't going to be pallets of paper that you have to go through one by one. It'll be standardized, it'll be electronic, it'll be a lot easier to do. So I look forward to that. Hey, we got another question. This one could be to you, Wes. Can you tell us why it's going to take another entire year for the HMGP buyout to get appraisals done. Hurricane Sally will be 3 years in September. I understand red tape, but doesn't grant monies have timelines to meet? That's a federal thing, right? I mean, is that that's
It's a
federal?
federal grant. It is a federal grant. We've been through, I think we're on our third iteration of HMGP. And it is a process that you, first off, you got to be approved by FEMA. That's a process. And then you got to follow the all the steps according to the grant. So yes, you do have to get the appraisals and follow the steps. And it can be a little lengthy at times, but you know, getting appraisals right now at this moment is not. We used to get an appraisal in a week. Now, when you ask for a turnaround on an appraisal, it could be as long as 2 months. It's just that busy. But following the process, and I know it seems like it's a little elongated, but we got to make sure we follow all the steps, follow the specifications of the grant, do all the reporting that the grant requires, and then we'll move forward with the purchase of the property and demolition of the structure. But even though it seems a little long, I think in the end it's worth it.
Yeah, well, and obviously we're playing by their rules. It's not, if we could do it and do it our way, I'm sure we could probably do it quicker, but that's a federal program and, you know, it is what it is. Would it be better to minimize storm recovery costs and efforts if structures were built better? Yeah, absolutely. And that was a theme. That was a big theme of the conference too. I mean, these building codes in some of these counties are just very weak. And the one gentleman in particular, one of the breakouts that I went to said, look, the building standards, he goes, that's a minimum. That's the bare minimum. So if you build these structures to the bare minimum, you're going to have damage. And so obviously it is more expensive to use, you know, in poured in place concrete or these other techniques. But obviously if you're in especially on the coastal areas, you can always build above the code. But mandating it is difficult. And they said statewide, that's an issue. Now, some areas in South Florida, they do have some stronger building codes. But again, this guy pointed out, those are just the minimums. So if you're a private homeowner, go get them, Tiger. I mean, go get them if you want to do it. I mean, the problem is we're all one way or the other footing the costs when these things go through. So you make a valid point there, but some things are difficult to get to. I mean, look how long it took us to get to the 100-year storm ponds. Remember, Wes?
Yeah, right. That's right. You know, I worked with a fellow one time, and he used to use the phrase, you know, our minimum standards are this, and our current she was engineer then, she's engineer now. She says, quit saying that. We're not building the minimum standards. We want to build above minimum standards.
That's right.
That's what we're going to do. And that's where some of that change came in with the ponds and such.
No, absolutely. All right. We're going to go through a series of rapid fire questions for Travis. So pet shelters, I know we work with the school board on, you know, a couple of, I think Molino Park Elementary was the pet shelter. Is that still in, or do we not use that school anymore? Where's the pet?
We have, so first off, I want to give a shout out with that to John Robinson. So, you know, we have probably one of the premier people in the country working for Escambia County that works in this regard, and so I rely heavily on John, and he's just awesome to work with. But we actually, the Base Center is also a pet shelter. So we have what John's group does is they set up 2 pet shelters, depending on the size of the storm, but we have so we've got the Base Center, and then we also have Molino Elementary that is still also a pet shelter. So anybody can bring their pets to that shelter, dogs, cats. So we ask that you would provide, that you put them in a kennel and that you would bring them. But if you don't have a kennel, John does have access to kennels. And then ECAT, when we call for an evacuation, ECAT suspends their operations and picks up folks to take to those shelters, and pets included. And so we actually get those kennels on those buses for the folks that don't have them, and they can get picked up, they get taken to the pet shelter, and then the pet is not with the individual. The pet is in the pet shelter area. It's still the responsibility of the pet owner to go and feed the animal. And then also John's group, if you don't provide your immunizations records for the animals there at the shelter, they can do immunizations, and I think do immunizations as well at the shelter. So we have 2 pet shelters, and so we're again, John is just does an outstanding job with that.
John Robinson's amazing. Again, back to our discussion before, all these department heads. I mean, I can't think of a one that isn't, heads and shoulders above their peers around the state and other places. places I've been, places I've worked. So we are fortunate for the staff that we have. But that was a good point that you made. So when you bring, okay, you've got the evacuation notice, you got 2 dogs. When you bring them to the shelter, bring them in a kennel, bring your own food, leash, toys, whatever, but also the shot records. I mean, some people might be like, well, wait a minute, I don't even know where that's at. So what happens? So if you don't, your dog's just going to get an extra round of shots. Is that what happens?
Could. I mean, it's shot records for your animals, especially if you plan on evacuating to a shelter. That's just as important as your other documents that we ask that you take care of to make sure that you have them in a waterproof bag of some sort. And your animal shot records are important if you're evacuating to a shelter.
Because I think a lot of I would love to know the percentage of people who actually, because I had a dog for many years till he died. God rest him. God, what a great dog that was. But I have no idea where the shot records were. I would just get a copy every time I took him to the vet. He'd get the next one, bang. But anyway, so that's good information. So bring the shot records, find them now, right before the storm, find them, gather them, and have them with you. Okay. One of the other things they talked about at this conference was really cool. It was like they were blowing their own horn, but that's cool if he had data. Jamie Rome, who is the deputy director of the National Hurricane Center, gave a great speech. But 2 of the things he was talking about, and I want to get your opinion on this, is how great and accurate the National Hurricane Center, their long range forecasts have become. And he showed a chart. He said in the last 10 years, I mean, the accuracy is way up. Do you find that to be the case? Because looking at Hurricane Sally, I mean, it was all over the place. I mean, or were they just blowing their own horn, or is it true?
Well, it's a bit of a loaded question. So
I know it is. I'm good at that.
So I have a personal opinion of that, and I do understand his that what he's saying with that is that the modeling has gotten better. Let's use Hurricane Sally as an example. And so it was not projected to hit us. It's supposed to hit Mississippi. I think that they may be the storms that we're going to receive or that we're going to get throughout a given year, that potentially that they have gotten better at being able to predict how many storms we're going to get, or what how large they're going to be, what the kind of impacts they may have. But the track of a storm, I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced. And I had a really good conversation with the National Weather Service after Sally with Jason Beeman, who at the time was who gave all the presentations in regards to Sally and before. And he told me that they have these awesome models, but they have so much data now that it's so hard to sort through all that data, because you have all these different models predicting this and that, and that it's going to go over here and it's going to go over there. And quite frankly, I'm not convinced that they are. All you have to do is look at the GFS model from last year. Oh my goodness. It showed it. I don't know how many times that we showed up in that cone or even with direct hits, as far as the GFS stating that we're going to get that. The European model last year in particular was much better, in my opinion. And, it definitely, and those are 2 of the models that we of course are definitely looking at all the time. And at one point in time, the GFS was better, and so it's really good for them, and I'm hopeful that the technology gets better and better. But no, sir, I'm not convinced.
Interesting. Okay, that was a cool conversation. The other point that he tried to make, and I think you would probably agree with this. He seemed, well, number one, very parochial about the Storm Center and them and the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, and a little bit of disdain. I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but I sensed it. And so if I sense it, I'll say it. It seemed like there was a little disdain for folks like Mike's weather page, for example, who a lot of people go to his site because that guy, maybe he's not a meteorologist or whatever, but he's smart. And he gets it right. And so there seemed to be a little bit of disdain because he didn't mention them by name, but he said, these people on Facebook. Well, I think he was probably speaking about Mike's weather page, but Mike's weather page, I look at a lot of different sources, just like news. I think you look at a lot of different sources and you kind of triangulate where you think things really are, right? Because if you just watch one network, you might get it one way. Same thing with these storms. I mean, like you said, there's the European model, there's the GFS, and there's spaghetti tracks, there's different ones, but interesting. He thought that his were the best, and you think others. So that's interesting. Everyone's got their opinions, but the thing he talked about that I think you'll agree with him on was the Saffir-Simpson wind scale. He said, "Look, everyone focuses on the wind speed, the wind speed, the wind speed." He goes, "But it's the storm surge that kills people." And he said, if he could get 1 point across, is for people to stop focusing on the darn wind speed. He goes, there can be low-level storms in terms of wind speed that do tremendous damage because of the storm surge in conjunction with the right tidal cycle. And he goes, so people got to pay attention. Is that seems true to me, right, Travis?
100%. And that's, that is the killer during hurricanes and storm surge. And so when we call for an evacuation, it has nothing to do with the wind speeds. It is all about the storm surge, and that's one thing that we always, tout during our presentations with preparedness, is that if we call for an evacuation, it's the real deal. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You need to get out of there. And so because look at it from a Hurricane Michael standpoint over in Bay County, that was a Category 5 hurricane. They had up to 20 feet of storm surge in certain areas. And then you look at Escambia County, and we got 2 rivers that border east side of the county, and that storm surge pushes all the way up those rivers. And so that's something that everybody's thinking, well, I just need to worry about if I live down there by the coast. No, I mean, that storm surge, it pushes in. I mean, much further than what people realize. And so that I 100% agree that is something that everybody has got to pay attention to, is those storm surge numbers.
Yeah, he really reiterated. Oh, sorry, Wes.
Yeah, Jeff, I think about Hurricane Ivan and Grand Lagoon area. You see a house that's built up on pylons, and then you see the first floor and the second floor, then you have the attic. There were people during Hurricane Ivan that drowned in their attic. This because of the storm surge, because you can't envision it. You see that house and it's built up, and
you're like, I'll be fine.
That the roof is, there's no way that water can reach that. But if the conditions are right, if the storm's coming in at high tide and it's got a huge surge, it's done it. We've been there. We have responded to those events where we had people actually drown in their attics. And the thing is, they're trying to make phone calls during the storm. It's too late. So when we do give the evacuation order, just play it safe.
Right, and leave. Just go. It's not worth your life. It's not worth. And he said the loss of life has been. He believed that it's really gone way down because a lot of people were getting the message out and people are listening. They've seen some of these. One of the videos he showed was chilling, and I'm sure Travis, you've seen it. Probably you too, Wes. And I had never seen it because I don't, necessarily live that 24/7, 365. But it was fascinating. Was from Fort Myers. And it was a time lapse. It was a time lapse of the flood and the storm surge coming in. And you've got some big hotels in the background, and you got this one house right here. It's a wooden house, but it's kind of built up, right? And so he goes, watch very carefully. Sure enough, the surge goes up. So, and this thing is raised. It gets up to the door, and then it goes above the door. And then you see the window. He goes, watch the window shutters. And the window shutters, and there's a door. There were people in there. They didn't leave. And the next thing you know, this thing got overwhelmed, and the whole thing went. And that was it. And no one, I didn't ask the question. I wanted to. Well, what happened to the people? Well, you could probably imagine what happened to the people. Sadly, they were probably one of the statistics. So you got to go. If Escambia County tells you it's time to go, you've got to go. If you don't, you'll be like the guy in that house floating away. We don't want that to happen. So I appreciate that. Previous storm reimbursements. I know we're kind of switching topics around, but it's that time of year we want to know, but we talked about it in advancement. I like that idea because how much did we spend on Hurricane Sally debris removal out of pocket? How much did we front? It was like 70 million, right, Wes? Was it 70 million?
That's right. We had the first reimbursement of 44 million. Then we had another reimbursement that took us close to 70.
Yeah.
Ms. Liz Kissel, that's on staff. I got to tell you, I'm so impressed with her work and her drive and her initiative. She has formed relationships with folks at FEMA, with folks at FDM, folks at HUD and DEO. I mean, we get these grant opportunities that come in, and she's on the phone as soon as they're announced. And one gentleman says, "Liz, we just sent the announcement." She goes, "Well, I have questions." And
I love it.
And so, we got our 44 million reimbursement the day before Ian hit. I mean,
Wow.
that's cutting it close, because once those storms start hitting, FEMA's focus, they change, their focus turns.
Oh, yeah.
Where-
And
where-
understandably, justifiably. Yeah, they
Sure,
got to.
absolutely.
But
But
no, that's a good point, because a lot of people don't realize that we're financially, fiscally, there are people out there who say, oh, you're irresponsible, you're reckless. We have good resources. We have good fund balance. We have good reserves. I mean, there are not a lot of counties, or there are many, I should say it a different way. There are many counties that could not have done that. They could not have done it.
that's right.
They would not have that kind of money in reserve, but Escambia County does, because of the leadership of this county, and frankly, Stefan and his group, they've done a good job, and Wes has done a good job. So, but here's one issue on storm debris, because this came up, and I wanted to be sure I asked it. There's several private subdivisions that had large debris piles, and you could probably think of a couple. I'm not going to name them, but explain why it is that we can't pick up on private property, and what are the workarounds for that? Because there are some private subdivisions, and they got to get their stuff picked up, and maybe they don't realize what the law says.
So, Travis, you go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say that's actually that just came up here recently. So Andrew Homer just sent out actually a letter that I know that he works with those subdivisions to make sure that they, because we have to have permission to be able to pick up that debris, and so that's if it's a gated community, and so
Right.
and I know that came up a little bit during Sally, and I think a lot of that was addressed. But Wes, I know you can definitely speak to that better than I can.
Yeah, so we're trying to be proactive on the front end. There is a process where these private subdivisions and private roads can kind of be incorporated on the front end with a pre-approval, if you will, by FEMA. And we have a consultant on board that's helping us with that.
Okay, good.
I know in the past, you and Ivan, it was a big thing. Hey, it's a private road, it's a private subdivision.
Right.
And, typically we can't spend taxpayer dollars on private property.
Mhm.
And that goes for the county, the state, and the federal. So that's kind of where that comes from. But I think FEMA realizing that during these types of events, with catastrophic damage, that they needed to create a process for us to be able to help the folks in private subdivision, private roads, and I think that's what this latest initiative is. And so they have created an avenue for us to be able to do that.
One of the things that came up in the conference, and another one of the breakout sessions, was talking about procurement. And obviously, I was at this conference in a different capacity, but my ears perked up, because they said, since this is so heavily funded by the federal government, a lot of counties, municipalities make a mistake in the procurement process, and they don't follow the federal procurement rules. And I thought to myself, I remember during Sally, I had everyone calling me, hey, Commissioner Bergosh, Scooby-Doo owns this company, and man, you really got to give them and I'm like, hey, I'm not a part of that. I'm not purchasing. We're the legislative side of the house, but everyone was calling me, and I'm certain they were calling my counterparts. And I just, I don't know that I hope that we did that. And he said a lot of municipalities didn't, and it held up the reimbursements, and other things could come of that. So Wes, are we following the federal?
We absolutely always follow the federal guidelines with procurement. And there are some specifics when you're in a natural disaster like a hurricane, but you still have to follow the processes. I know it's easier. It'd be a lot easier sometimes just to go and do, or go and buy, or go and get.
Right.
You still have to take a step back, follow your processes, since you know that you're going to get reimbursed. And so we have a good collaboration between purchasing and legal.
Okay,
in the administrator's office. And so we do that. We absolutely follow up the proper processes.
All right. Well, we're getting down to the wire. So I want to ask Travis just two quick things. Number one, how come the University of Colorado gets to be the storm prediction? Why wouldn't it be like Miami or University of South Florida? Why do you think that is? I just know it's the University of Colorado. So why is that? They're in the mountains. They're in the Rockies.
Right. They've been doing that the longest. And so they've set up the models and the prediction center for that. And so I know that the Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service defaults to them when it comes to the predictions. It does seem a bit odd.
It seems,
I would imagine at some point in time that, the University of Florida, somebody in Florida is going to want to pick that up, I would imagine, and they do their own modeling as well, but it's just that one has been the standard that everybody's used for so many years. And so and speaking of, that, as and I don't even like saying this out loud, but but because it's been put out in the public, it's that they've said that it's a below average season this
Yeah.
year, which is in my mind is that's just a bunch of junk, because all it takes is one storm
Right.
to impact us, and we're hit, and we got to deal with it. And so, that is in no means should that be any kind of way to justify not getting prepared, or not keeping up with the weather or what's going on, because it just takes one. And there's still, even with that prediction that they made, there's still several major hurricanes that are predicted for this year, and we could very well be impacted by that.
Yeah. And that was another thing that they pointed out in one of the breakout sessions was just, and they had it stratified in a bar chart, like, and it was based on a number of different natural disasters where evacuation orders had been given. In fact, I should probably do a blog on it because it's very interesting. But they said like 20%, no matter what, they will not leave. They could see a tidal wave coming. They're not going. They're very intransigent. And about 30%, though, are very, very dutiful. And they would, the minute they're told to evacuate, they're going to do it. And then in between, some people would if it got to a certain level. But again, Rome was talking about the wind scale. Like people go, well, I'll stay if it's a 2 or 3, but if it's a 4, I'll leave. And he goes, they're paying attention to the wrong thing. So that was interesting information, and I'll probably put that out. Be Ready Escambia is a great resource. Tell us about the county and the resources. If anyone that's watching or anyone that sees this, go to Be Ready Escambia and look at that site. I mean, there's resources, there's links. Tell us about what they can find there, Travis.
Literally everything. I mean, so we have we're very proud of that website. It's myescambia.com/be ready, or if you just Google Be Ready, anything to do with Escambia, it's the very first thing that pops up.
Right.
But we have just a number of resources on there. We always tout our Know Your Zone. We always want to make sure that people understand that if and when they're in an evacuation zone or not. And for instance, we sent out a flyer. Goodness, it was year before last. We had 2,000 residents were added to our evacuation zone after a new study that came out in regards to that. And we sent postcards to everybody at those addresses to notify them that they were added to a hurricane zone. And so just because you weren't in one before doesn't mean that you're not in it now. And so we always encourage people, to look at that to make sure that they understand what zone they're in. And then there's checklists and guides, checklists for all the different things that you need to be 1 week ready, not the first 72 on you. That's the
1 week. Okay.
That's 1 week ready. So that, the state, I will say just real quick. So Eric Gilmore and I got a very good look at the state operations. He and I went and supported the state logistics department in Tallahassee for FDEM during Hurricane Ian. And so we were able to be a part of that to see what all the resources were that the state had and what they were pushing out to the counties. And we were heavily involved in that. And so the state is trying to be very proactive about sending in food and water distribution points and pods and things of that nature. But all you got to do is look at a catastrophic storm that can come in, that can cut your bridges off, that can cut off your, just very much impact the recovery effort or trying to get resources in. And so it's just safer and a much better practice to be 1 week ready. And that means to have a week's worth of food, a week's worth of water for an individual in a household. And so that's because, it can take, we were blessed with Hurricane Sally in the sense that the power came on fairly quickly. But you look at it at something like a Hurricane Michael over there. There was folks in the north end of that county that didn't have power for a month. So
we hope to God that never happens again.
That's right.
There's so much more we could talk about on this topic, but I want to get to one other topic before we run out of time. But before I get there, I want to say another thing that I believe separates us from other communities around the state, based upon what I learned at this conference, is just the way we work so well with the media, in particular WEAR Channel 3. There was several members of the media that had a panel, and they talked about the idea that the counties down there and some of the municipalities did not have a strong relationship with the media. And so when they were saying, okay, zone A and B got to evacuate, the media didn't know. They're like, well, what does that mean? We thought that means something different. And so one of the things they emphasized was your local municipalities and counties have to be in lockstep with the media so that when an evacuation order is given, they know. And I would say Channel 3, Channel 10, Channel 15 locally, I think they do a good job. I mean, Travis, I mean, if you say something, I mean, they put it out, right?
They jump on it, and we have a very good relationship with our local media, anywhere from TV, radio, internet. I mean, we do. In fact, as a matter of fact, we're actually holding a media roundtable at the end of this month to bring all our media partners in to discuss that very thing, and we do that every year.
I know that you, and I appreciate that, and we're very fortunate. Now we got about 5 minutes left, but I want to ask you about something, and you know, we'll just kind of change gears abruptly, because I know this is something that you're passionate about, and in your free time, your spare time, I know you're a giving individual and that you have a passion for the homeless. And last week I had the opportunity, along with many other elected officials, to attend a 1 hour presentation with no questions, and that ended rather abruptly, about what we need to do to get maximum federal reimbursement to deal with the topic of homelessness. Dr. Joe Savage gave the presentation. Lots of good information, lots of useful stuff, but frankly, a lot of political ideology mixed in, a lot of rhetoric kind of thrown in there that I didn't necessarily agree with. I had the opportunity to speak with him after. Everyone's, you know, giving him, you know, a round of applause and thanking him profusely. But I asked him a simple question. I said, what do we do about the 40% or so that are, I'm going to use the word again, intransigent? They're very happy. They're very happy living in a tent, camping in the woods, starting fires, panhandling, engaging in destructive behavior like drug use. And his answer really didn't answer the question. It was more along the lines of, we need better trained people in the field, better caseworkers, more money. I don't know that that's the answer. I just don't think we found the solution. So you're out there a lot. You're out in the campgrounds. You're out there giving people meals. It's a passion. Tell me, was he onto something? Because I don't think it's all about necessarily money and aligning our policies to the ideology of a current administration that, you know, in order to get money, if it's not going to solve the problem. So what are your thoughts on that? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, actually, what I would bring up was that, so you all had the joint session meeting with him.
Correct.
He did that Civicon the next, or actually it was that night.
Uh-huh.
And then the next day there was a presentation that he gave, and a question and answer session with the community partners. So our Continuum of Care was there, are a lot of the different organizations that work with and try to end homelessness or reduce homelessness was there. And I got to say, the one positive thing that came out of this was that we need to address the issues that we have here locally, and that one of the biggest issues that we have here locally is our Continuum of Care.
Yeah,
and I'm just going to say it, and
yep.
You know, Chandra Smiley put it out during that meeting, and I 100% fully support her, and I would say that most people in that room completely supported what she said as well, that our Continuum of Care and our lead agency needs to be two separate organizations.
Okay, let me ask you a question on that, because I don't disagree with that. The point in time counts that we got from them, I don't want to name names, but you know who they are, and I just never trusted any of it. Nothing seems to be working. They were going to do this, they were going to do that. Nothing's working. So who should be the entity that runs that? Should it be the county? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, that's a conversation that Wes and I have had along with some city representatives as well. You know, that there's a model for that for sure. But the Continuum of Care should at the end of the day, it should be made up of all of our community partners. The HUD has very, very good guidelines for how that organization should be set up and how it should work. In my personal opinion, yes, I do believe that at least temporarily that the county could definitely do that. And I think that with the engagement of all of the community, because we have a lot of great folks in this county that do a lot of good work.
Yes.
And there's a lot of folks that want to work together, that they just, unfortunately, a lot of them don't want to work through our current COC. And I think that our current COC needs to be reorganized. Yep. And I do think the county and the city definitely need to be a part of that.
Okay, no, that's a great answer. Well, I mean, what a great way to end it too. There is potential to get more federal resources. That's fine. I mean, I saw this in the school district. You do this, it's a dangling carrot. You implement this policy and you get this money, but sometimes the policy isn't what is needed. And, I've seen that, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I think sometimes you do something on the cheap. I hate to say this, on the cheap, like Satoshi Forest, Michael Kimbrell, what he's done there. I've said it over and over, and I'll repeat it. I like the idea of taking those folks, moving them out of the suburbs, away from nice houses, giving them the job skills, the training, the things that they need, away from people, give them a bus card, let them drive them once a day to the bus station, let them do what they want to do. But I think just allowing them to exist and do what they do when it becomes destructive for neighborhoods. You've seen at the meetings, Wes, people are complaining about it. I mean, you buy a $500,000 house, under the bridge, there were folks that had invested in real estate there and had nice houses, and you had people dumping garbage, stealing stuff from their porch, and just engaging in bad behavior. So I want to help people. But again, to me, the pinch point is this, and I'm going to ask you, Travis, what do you do for that 40% that won't change? I mean, what's your opinion on that?
My opinion is that you have to have a come as you are shelter. You have to look at other municipalities have done that, in the sense that you can't enforce. It's very difficult to enforce ordinances of any kind if you don't have something of that nature. If you do have some place for people like that to go, and then it's enforceable. In my mind, that's one of the key things. If you're really wanting to clean up an area, unless you have some place for them to go, then it's going to continue to be a challenge.
Well, I think it's probably worthy of a longer conversation, but I wanted to ask your opinion, knowing that what I know about your passion and your service to this community. So, guys, what a great conversation. I appreciate your time. I think this had a lot of good information to pass, and I think the folks might learn things. For me, the takeaway is have your pets a shot record. Now, wait, someone did put on here, because I remember Rocky, he had a tag, but I thought that was just a rabies tag, or does the tag you get have all the shots in it embedded? I don't know. Does anyone know that? Do you guys know?
I think that's just a rabies.
That's what I thought too. Okay, so
yeah.
That's not enough. You got to have all the shots, right? You got to have the shot record. So that's because everyone in this community has pets. I learned that going door to door. Everyone's got dogs, multiple dogs. So if you got to go in the shelter, bring your pet records. Okay. If I have another one of these on homelessness, Travis, would you be willing to come and talk? And Wes, would you be all right if he does?
Absolutely.
Because I might invite
closer together over the past 6 months, 8 months. We're doing some stuff that the point in time count. And Travis is going to run the next point in time count.
Good.
Our emergency management is going to organize and run the next point in time count. We've already said that. We've told the COC that that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
And well, maybe just one piece. That's just one piece. I get it. But we're taking that same approach with some other things.
Right on. Well, maybe next month we'll have a conversation about homeless, and a longer conversation, and I'll dig into some additional information data. But in the meantime, everyone be safe, be prepared for hurricane season. Remember to heed the warnings, watch the cone, stay tuned to the news, go to Be Ready Escambia, and just make sure you can weather the first week. It's not the first 72. It's the first week is on you, right, Travis? The first week is on you.
That's right.
All right. Okay. We'll see you guys next month. Thanks for everyone who tuned in, and Wes and Travis, thanks for being here. Y'all have a great rest of the week.
You too, Commissioner.